that dude. How are you doing, dude?
I'm good, brother. How are you today?
Pretty great. Week one of Monday Night Football, and here we go. So one of the things we wanted to start with is just kind of recapping the things that took place on, as well as we'll look forward to, in this case, two Monday night games. Excited for that. First off, I guess, Dan, any standout fantasy performances from Sunday, from yesterday, week one?
I mean, the Packers and Vikings game, funnily enough, stands out. It was not a game I was expecting to play out that way. I don't know how many people thought would, and it was an incredible watch. Devontae Adams and Adam Thielen went bananas. Dalvin Cook proved his worth. Aaron Rodgers showed what he's about as well, and even Kirk Cousins threw a long ball. So, it had everything, and obviously that Vikings defense, they lost a lot of players in the offseason. It showed. It showed they're in a bit more trouble than I think they even anticipated. And obviously, like COVID happening and all that, limited reps and all that sort of thing, it's almost showing that the bad teams are probably worse than where they think they are, and the good teams are just even better than what they probably look like. So the Packers left off, obviously a bit of taste in their mouth from the last game against San Fran, and they just went out and, I know you're a Packers guy, and that was a bad game, but obviously they leaked a lot of points. It was a 43-34, so it's not like they weren't without fault. 34 points isn't something that they're going to be overly happy about, but at the same time, 43 on the road at Minnesota doesn't happen very often either, so they would be over the moon with how they went with that. And obviously Devontae Adams is someone we'll probably touch base on as well today at some point. He obviously had a disappointing 2019 campaign, and how he looked. It was phenomenal. He had an amazing game, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And I touched on this on my on Packers pod. Touched on the fact that their pass rush wasn't entirely healthy, and Hunter didn't play. So I think week 7, I believe the Packers play the Vikings. I think it'll be a much tougher game. So yeah. Got some comments coming in. Jared, here we go. Oh, yeah, here we are, Monday night. So recapping on Sunday what happened, and one of the things we want to talk about, who are the best and worst fantasies at different positions. So, we can start at wide receiver if you want. We already talked about Devon. I believe a career high 14 receptions, so especially in PPR. Looking at Fantasy Pros right now, in half point and full point PPR scoring, at this point, Devontae Adams is the highest scoring fantasy player of the week at any position, even outscoring his own quarterback. So yeah, great performance from Devontae Adams. Any other wide receivers to you?
Yeah, for good or bad? Because we can go
either. Yeah, I know. I'll let you a dealer's choice.
Yeah, so I am unequivocally a John Brown stan. Is that what they say, a stan? I am a John Brown fan. He produced with Joe Flacco in Baltimore. He was a top 15, top 20 receiver with Flacco. Then Lamar Jackson takes over, and then he was just appalling after that, and that happened. But he goes to Buffalo last year, top 15 receiver, give or take, PPR, top 20. All the guy does is produce, and yesterday I think he proved that as well. And he was open a lot more as well. Josh Allen, he had an up-and-down game as well, but I kind of feel like John Brown was underappreciated. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins as well. He fit in very, very nicely into what the Cardinals were doing. It almost feels like an easy one. Yeah, I kind of feel like Hopkins is he gets paid and he's giving them their money's worth. So Hopkins is that guy. And, obviously there was the narrative all offseason about players that go to new teams as free agents. It takes them a year to no, not Hopkins. That guy produced with some of the worst quarterback plays, and he gets Kyler Murray for the next 3 to 5 years. 5 years, what was it? 5-year deal or an extension with 3, whatever it was. That guy's performed with the worst, and now he gets Kyler Murray. I don't think he's going to have any trouble going forward as a Cardinal, and he just fit in so well. He did. He was incredible.
Yeah, I think 100 yards already right off the bat. So clearly capable. Yeah.
Yeah, 29 points. 29 points in PPR. He was that guy. First game as a Cardinal. And that's a game last year that they might have lost, obviously, to the 49ers as well. That could have been that game. A year ago, he might be the difference maker that they need. And that's an easy one to say because, DeAndre Hopkins is just a special unit. So, yeah, I mean, we're seeing the comments come in. Calvin Ridley balled out. Yeah, he did. Yeah. What a goal. Atlanta, Seattle.
I think I know in our going for two grinders DFS championship, I had the Ridley Adams stack, and I think the winning lineup ended up having that too. Running backs let me down a little, and I'll touch us on one in a little bit. But just to touch on John Brown, he also through week one has tied for the league lead in red zone targets. So small. I don't think of him necessarily as a red zone. Josh Allen's looking for him all over the field, so it's a good sign for Brown. I kind of have that right off the bat, and should look forward for that all season.
As the season goes on, you'd think Stephon Diggs is going to work in more, and you'd think that Dawson Knox is going to get more work too. So I can imagine that changes as the year goes on. I think Zach Moss had a receiving touchdown. I mean, week one, it was always going to throw, some things we may or may not have expected, and John Brown producing. I don't think that should never be one of them. He's always one of those guys that tends to produce. It's funny on like DraftKings, the guy's never over like $6,000 either. He's never over $6K. He's always someone that's kind of attainable, but for some reason, everyone kind of fades him, and the guy's he's a stud. I think he's very underappreciated.
So just talk about some receivers that disappointed, unfortunately. So there's Mike Evans. I know part of this, there was a chance he wasn't even going to play. So I wonder how much his injury, his snap count. I think he played over 90% of the snaps. So clearly the Bucs didn't seem like they were limiting him at all with his efficiency and the fact that, covered often by Marshawn Lattimore. Really, I don't know if we're too surprised that he didn't perform so well.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like Marshawn Lattimore, they had that scuffle once or twice. It seemed like that was the play. Look, he still got open. He still stretched the legs a little bit too. So it's as if he was okay and they were just testing it and all the rest. But, I mean, you would have liked to have seen more. I think anyone that invested the second round, third round pick, depending the size of your league, in Mike Evans would have liked to have seen a little bit more than what one target was it, I think. That was a very hard game to watch, the Bucs Saints. It wasn't for a lack of trying, but you'd think that someone like Mike Evans moving forward will get a lot more work. And obviously, we can talk about Scotty Miller as well. He's someone that, the narrative was Brady and slot receivers, and he doesn't like guys that are like Mike Evans is going to get open at some point, and he's going to find him. Brady's that good, and so is Evans. I think it's just, again, it's a case of how do they get those reps in at good practice? Like, how many times at practice were they actually going to go out and hit each other? I don't think so. It was going to be a different beast. Evans is going to prove himself eventually. It'd be hard for him not to, but at the same time, you obviously don't want Scott Miller taking more work. You don't want Justin Watson. OJ Howard looked good too. So if they're going to spread it around and Evans gets off to a slow start, that's probably the worst thing that could possibly happen, if that's a bad thing at all. But it just seemed like he was out there to occupy Marshall and Lattimore.
And especially in a game with this game where they were down for most of it and to throw so much, it's a type of game you think you'd Evans produce in. Other disappointments.
It was a weird game. Was it a muffed field goal and a pick six? Like, that's, you don't normally associate that with Tom Brady games. Like, they were in it. They were relatively in it until the field goal, missed field, the blocked field goal. They were in it up until that point, and it seemed like every time they made a good play, the next play directly after they shot themselves in the foot and they've been moved back another 5 yards. Like that tended to happen a fair bit yesterday. Well, they had like intercepts turned over. Like, they were unlucky, but they'll get better as the year goes on, I think.
So a couple other disappointments quickly. Michael Gallup, I think that whole game kind of a disappointment in terms of it was the second high spread of the week going in terms of combined over under. Amari Cooper balled, but it seems like Michael Gallup really struggled in lesser coverages, fighting off like Cooper had against Ramsey. So I thought Gallup, there's a few wide receivers that really just disappointed me, but Gallup thought everything kind of screamed like the game which was supposed to go his way. Didn't. I put Justin Gel, but really, how much were you expecting out of a rookie? I know I thought Thielen would see a ton of Jair Alexander. Maybe Jefferson could take advantage of Kevin King, but they didn't really use him that often. Olabi Johnson is clearly that number 2 wide now. So, and then you put DJ Chark. I'm curious on this because he did score a touchdown. It seems like outside that touchdown, he didn't.
He got bailed out by a touchdown in a game where Minshew was doing quite well. Well for Minshew, I guess, in those sorts of in that environment. But at the same time, he had 3 receptions for 25 yards. I think Chark had. He got bailed out by the touchdown, and it was a beautiful touchdown. They connected really nicely on it. But at the same time, you'd think the way the Jags were set up this offseason, we can talk about the tank. That's fine, but without Fournette, and it's not like Marquise Lee is there. It's not like Dede Westbrook did much. I think Keelan Cole might have been their best receiver, and that's kind of where they're at. And it was weird to see a guy who, again, someone that people have invested, especially for fantasy or maybe on DraftKings or whatnot. DJ Chark's a guy that was attainable, in the second, third, fourth round, whatever it may have been. And in DraftKings, he wasn't badly priced. It was a decent matchup against the Colts, and he's ended up plugging 3 for 25. I think that would be a little bit of a worry. Obviously, again, we can preface it with it's week 1. These things happen. Let's see how it goes. Maybe they weren't playing from behind enough. Who knows? That was again a tough game to watch. And Phillip Rivers did what Phillip Rivers does: intercepts last 5 minutes, fantastic. But that was a weird game to watch. Like if you had said who's going to be the Jaguars' best player before the game, everyone would have said DJ Chark, and here we are looking at James Robinson and Keelan Cole. They aren't the answers anyone would have come up with, and that's how it ended up.
It's funny. We talked about Mike Evans as a disappointment. Perhaps no one more disappointing than Michael Thomas. I remember seeing a tweet. The last time he got this few targets was, I think, his rookie season, or maybe not even. He may have been the fewest targets ever. Like they clearly. I don't know if the Bucs just shut him out. The Saints win with other options, but our co-patriot at going for 2, Michael Thomas cost him in his home league.
Oh, that's a shame. Poor Jay. Now listen, I think the weirdest thing for that was when you think about it, the Bucs, last year had a top 2, top 3 run defense, right? And Kamara goes bananas, and Michael Thomas is getting locked down. It was a weird. I tended to stay away from Kamara yesterday. It's nothing to do with him. It's just the Bucs run D is generally pretty good. I thought Thomas was going to be that guy, and Sanders was okay. Tre'Quan Smith even had a play here or there. It was one of those things that, the high ankle sprain for Michael Thomas, right? So that could be him for a week or 2. I don't know when they play next. I don't know if they're on the Monday
I think
night.
It's Monday. I think they're the next Monday night game.
Yeah,
I believe they play the Raiders.
I remember when was it? Obviously, there's elements and degrees to how people react and recover and whatnot. I know Saquon missed a week or 2 with a high ankle. That generally seems to be the way to go. Again, if he can run in a straight line, who knows? I don't know if that'll help, but Michael Thomas was out there, and I don't know if Cortland Sutton's out there. Sometimes players go out there to just to be that decoy, and he could be that. But I don't know if he can't run, he won't be there. So, it could be interesting to see.
So we'll move on. Move on to different positions. So tight end, Mark Andrews, I believe right now is the highest scoring tight end, regardless of format, I think. So clearly he was the guy. And I don't think in any case was the number 1 tight end drafted.
No, Dallas Goedert and Goedert in PPR, 24.1, Mark Andrews, 22.8.
Okay, in half point and non-PPR, Andrews is the number. But yeah, Andrews and Goddard seems like those were the 2 best. Everyone expected that from Andrews. I think Goddard, it made sense. I ranked pretty highly this week. I think inside the top 10 of tight ends, just because of not sure about the health of some of the receivers. But yeah, he went off over 100 yards, got the touchdown. Dallas Goedert was great.
His splits without Alshon Jeffrey speak for themselves. Like when he is like the number 2 guy, Zach Ertz is always number 1, right? And what do you have? 10 receptions, 100 yards, and a touch. Like, at year 3 jump for Goddard, it's going to be pretty incredible this year. And, the better he gets, I know, was it Zach Ertz, he had that contract issue with the Eagles prior to week 1. So Goddard keeps producing. That's a guy you want to get your hands on. That's a guy that you're probably going to want to go and get.
Yep. I think so. I don't know. It seems like he's drafted in most leagues. I don't think Dallas Goedert's someone that's necessarily out there on waiver leagues. If he is, certainly go grab him. Our listener is well informed. Jared mentioned the fact that Mark Andrews in 45% of they threw to him so much. He still got 98 targets, but already week 1 we see of Hayden Hurst being gone. Not necessarily more targets for Mark Andrews, but he targeted anyway. But he played 71% of the snaps. So maybe just being out on the field more, I think, is going to help Andrews. I certainly don't think it'll hurt him. Point by Jared to mention, I know that some of the comment is cut off. Just mentioning to see if his snap count is going to be higher this year and maintain that.
What was he? What was that? He was at 45% last year, so anything better than that's only going to be a big deal for him going forward. He was top 3 tight end last year at 45% snap count. That's still
the 12 touchdowns helped.
It does, and obviously a team that was missing Marquise Brown a few weeks as well, and we can't exactly go out and say that the receiving options last year were great. We're not going to say that they've improved that much this year either. Like Brown, you hope takes a step forward. Les Hurst is probably, what do you have, 40 odd targets? It's not that big of it's a big deal, but is it? Yeah. 40 odd targets to Hurst last year, and obviously if he's out there and he's that option, then that's good for him, but I'm not sure there were many games where Mark Andrews didn't not produce last year anyway. So more time, more points. I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. It's a good 5 points more than what Travis Kelce had, and that's kind of a big deal. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. So look for again touchdown season last year. Looks like he's already on pace to continue that. Moving on to the quarterbacks. So one of our listeners, Brandon, Josh Allen. I know I had him outside my QB1 range, even though I'm high on him, drafted him in a few leagues. But I just thought with the Jets, the matchup wasn't necessarily the great. I was surprised that Alex S on the ground getting the rushing touchdown against the strength of that defense really is that defensive. I figured he may struggle there, but the fact that he was able to get the rushing score against them,
they did lose CJ Mosley. He opted out, and obviously Jamal Adams, obviously he's not a small loss either. But 2 fumbles and he's still punching out 28 points. That's kind of ridiculous. But again, there were times where I think Dawson Knox was in the corner and he's just was an absolute howler. He's absolutely missed him, and you could see Knox just looking at him like, what the hell was that, man? And same thing happened. It happened to John Brown as well. At times he's missing an easy throw. And even sometimes when he's dumping it off, he doesn't look like a long ball all day. Pay him his money. He's gonna be fine with that. He's gonna find his guys, but every now and again, he looks a little shaky. Obviously, the rushing touchdowns help. He's gonna have that upside, which would scare anyone that has Singletary or Moss. That's always going to cannibalize, right? If you're telling me that 28 points is going to come from a rushing touchdown as well, that negates the 2 fumbles, and everything from there is gravy. So it's not a bad thing to have up your sleeve either.
One, I hate pumping up Bears players. Mitch Trubisky actually performed pretty well. The second half, I would argue Matt Stafford, fantasy-wise, a bit of a disappointment if you look at that game. So
yeah, so for my going for 2 rankings, I actually had Matt Stafford, I think, as a QB6. I ended up moving him back to 6, and I had Trubisky at 16. Trubisky's going to get points, whether you like it or not. He can rush. Was it a year ago? 2018, he was rushing for 35, 40 yards a game. He has that in his arsenal. As an Allen Robinson savant, it was frustrating as all buggery, but at the same time, he found Jimmy Graham, and obviously they went out of their way to go get Jimmy Graham this offseason. And I think there was even 1 or 2 more where they could have connected for more points. Jimmy Graham's a great pickup for a guy that can't throw straight. So, it was weird to see how their run game worked out. I think that'll be interesting to unfold over the next week or so as Montgomery gets healthier. I've said
Yeah.
it before. I've said it all off season. The Bears' schedule to start the season is very user friendly. I believe they get the Giants next week. They have Carolina. They have some very soft games over the first 6 weeks. And I've always said they go 3-3, 4-2. They're not bringing Foles in. Like they're a very good chance at going 3-3 to start the year. That's absolutely a reality. So for a guy that was potentially about to lose his job, was named the starter week 1, he's got a good run to start the year. That's all those guys. That's all Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy need. Ends are going to justify the needs on that one. So it's a shame because I think everyone wanted to see maybe Foles in there with Allen Robinson, Jimmy Graham. I think that would have been a really cool thing to see. Obviously, when Foles was in at Philly, Darren Sproles looked good. Corey Clement looked good. Like that Super Bowl, like Corey Clement was absolutely crazy that game. Like a guy like that is going to prove his worth. And you kind of get Trubisky and you're like, well, it's more of the same. Okay, he started slow. He was overthrowing everyone and everything, but he got there in the end, and Stafford just didn't make the adjustments needed. Kenny Golladay being lost probably hurt. He did find TJ Hawkinson was the tight end 4 for the week, I think.
Yeah. Hang on.
Tight end 4.
Three and half. So he finished. I guess it's depend. I think Kelsey finished ahead of him in full PPR.
16.6 points. And you look at shout out to my back row guys, Telia, tight end landscape is atrocious. You look at the litany of players after him. David Njoku, IR today. Done. Logan Thomas, Washington. OJ Howard, Jared Cook, Greg Olsen, Hunter Henry, Jordan Akins, Jimmy Graham.
Yeah.
No, that's the tight end. And then after that, Ertz, Waller, Kittle. That's how that happened. So, Hawkinson's a chance, as long as Galladay's out, and I'm sure, it might have been a late withdrawal. I'm sure he might be a chance to go next week. But at the same point, this is a guy that's looking like, he could be a big deal, big deal this year for the Lions if they are to do anything. That loss hurts.
I will say the one warning for Hawkinson last year, great matchup against the Cardinals, exploded week 1 and then did nothing the rest of the year. I know injuries really factored in. Set up this week for him to succeed. The Bears, that's tight end, is maybe the one position they're the weakest at defending. So everything was set up for Hawkinson to succeed. I really wish I played him in the Grinders Championship lineup. Yeah. If I had instead of paying Wilson, should have grabbed Aaron Rodgers, and I would have got pay for up for a better tight end than what I got. Would have been that answer. So anyway, Hawkinson I think should be. I don't know if he's someone who's available on waiver. Probably drafted, unfortunately. So, but talking about...
they do that every year. Sorry to cut you off. They do that every year, Detroit, though. They start off really good fantasy-wise for points. They had that 50 to 50-odd point game against the Chiefs last year. And then the next week, Matt Stafford's on IR. He's done. Galladay's done. Kerryon Johnson's done. Marvin Jones is done. And Hawkinson's done. They pull the plug on these guys midway through the year when their season's cooked. So that's something to keep an eye on. That's not outside.
Yeah,
of the Lions.
I think Jobs being line this year might kind of prevent, but they may need to get any extra win they can just to for the coach to kind of survive. So that maybe not, but so just to talk about players who could be on the waiver wire. Both you and I picked probably are available in most leagues. I took Malcolm Brown as my best running back performance. We also picked both as our waiver wire pickups. So I think the same for both. Both showed to be their team's goal line backs. Although Taylor got some work too. So I think that's more just total number of carries. Both could be productive. Both are the pass catching backs. It seems again they're caught enough passes. But
Josh Kelly's another one that we have to talk about too.
Right? Yeah.
I thought Naheem Hines was the easy one because of what happened and how it unfolded, and obviously with Marlon Mack. Josh Kelly, I don't know how many people watched that game. He looked good. He looked real good.
Yep.
I think he exceeded everyone's expectations. And it's hard. Nobody really wants to go out and get a team's RB2, RB3. No one really knew how that was going to work with Justin Jackson there as well. Josh Kelly he was really good, but you're right. I mean, Malcolm Brown, why Malcolm Brown for you? Why obviously with how the result panned out. What did you see?
Because right now he the best on that team. Whereas I expect. I mean, Taylor already started to look good. As the year, he's going to take over more. And I do think the same for Akers, but this disparity between Brown and Akers right bigger than it does between Hines and Taylor. So
what did you think of Akers last night?
I thought he looked good. It almost seemed like the offensive line blocked better for Brown though, because it seemed like just more space. Like every time he was running, there was a hole up the middle.
Yeah, right.
It seemed like Akers almost had every extra yard, so it's tough to judge them because it did seem like there was a lot of times where Situ wasn't getting a lot of blocking help. So there was that one spin move. He did kind of show that explosiveness, but then he couldn't break through the tackle of the next player after making the spin move, which is something I thought would, his balance was so great in college. So I think he needs to get a little stronger. I think it's Malcolm's the time being, as long as that team is competitive. I mean, they want to win games, and whereas I think Jonathan Taylor is going to take over pretty quickly. He already looked explosive, much more explosive. So I think it's just that. I think it's the talent, because Akers is already Darrell Henderson. They gave Henderson really the third back there. So I think Brown's going to be the starting running back for longer than Hines and longer than Kelly. I think I'd order them Brown. I can up all three if I can. Like I think all three. You can never have too many running backs. Gladys mentioned Malcolm Brown has 25% availability on Yahoo. So our co-host, who unfortunately couldn't be here, join us in the comment section. So shout out to Gladys. Hopefully next week we can figure things out better. We're all learning here, folks. The NFL teams were learning, but I think that's good for the recap. Dan, is there anything else you wanted to?
Just the Phillies suck. That's it. I just wanted to throw that one out there too. I thought I'd throw the white green on just to swerve, and then I just wanted to throw that in there. Phillies still suck. That's it.
Also, actually, before we get to that question, Gladys mentioned at not sure why. Okay, yeah, it is there. Gladys, Hines out-snapped Taylor on 11 offensive snaps. That's pretty close to me. But if I think that's going to be quickly flipped the other way. If it's already that close, where you look at Brown snaps here, Malcolm Brown played 60% of the snaps, whereas Akers was only 33. Like Brown is basically on the field twice as much as. So I think Brown is more secured there as Hines. The thing with Hines though is the Colts in games where they're in the lead, both will be viable most weeks. Quickly before we get to our preview though, I did have a trade question. AJ, should I trade Michael Thomas for Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Cooper Kupp? I would say if you're starting more than 10 players, if you're starting 11 to 13 players every week, the chance at 2 starters is so much more valuable than I would do that. I think if you're 10 is probably the tipping point. If you're in 10, you could probably go either way, but if you're less than 10 starters, I would that up a guy.
But I mean, at the same time, Kupp looked good last night. Thomas could be out for a couple of weeks. You want to win games now, so I understand why.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big Cooper Kupp guy too. Like Michael Thomas speaks for himself. I mean, I guess it would depend on who you have at running back as well.
Yeah,
like
I think
you know what I mean. Like that's
because I'm trying to think. Even if it's let's say it's start 8, getting Michael Thomas between CEH and Michael Thomas, that could be actually pretty similar production. I think no matter what, I think give me CEH, give me Kupp. As much as Kupp, wasn't great. I think CEH and MT are going to be so close that if you give me Edwards-Helaire and anything on, take that side, even if it is a start.
Wasn't a good game. It wasn't a good game at all last night, and Kupp still looked okay. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not to take anything away from Michael Thomas. Obviously, getting hurt, and he gutted it out as much as he could. But at the same time, if Alvin Kamara does that, obviously, everyone spoke last year about the Kamara regression, and obviously they didn't. What was it, a 3-1 touchdown pass to rush touchdown that the Saints had last year, right? So if that's the case, if that's going to get, if that's going to get closer together, then Kamara is going to probably take away from Thomas. But, geez, that's a tough one. I think I'd pull the trigger on that as well. I think I'd want Helaire after what you saw from that.
Yeah, 10, and I mean they gave him the opportunity.
Yeah, that's it. He was.
So this will come out in my red zone report.
That's impressive. That's as impressive of a debut that I can remember. He was unreal.
He looked good running, but he also got a ton of opportunities. He and Peyton Barber, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Peyton Barber got the most red zone opportunity. Also, both had the most carries from inside the 5. That's a crazy 1-2 punch there. We could have Barber in the same vein as Malcolm Brown. He's the goal line back. I think Barber's not involved in the pass. He didn't mention, unlike Hines and Brown, where both look to be backs, especially Hines, who I believe was second on the Colts in receptions last year. So it's not a deal for him to do something like that again. But we do want to get to these Monday night previews. Sorry.
Let's get to that. The Colts,
because we're 12 left and we haven't actually talked about the Monday night games on this Monday night show. So
let's get on with it. Let's go.
First off, your Giants, a team you're a fan of, hosting the Steelers. So right now it's our Steelers by 6.5, and
over under at 45 as well.
45, yes, thank you. So a few topics to talk about. One was the big one, right? Ben Roethlisberger's injury. What is to expect from that? For everything, it seems like he's going to play. No limitations.
He's going to be fine. Ben, I think he's going to be fine.
I know Searfoss is even mentioning that, looking at the elbow, he found something in his shoulder that had been bugging him for almost a half decade. So he got a few things cleaned to actually be healthier than he was at the start of last year.
There's not many people that take a hit as well as Ben Roethlisberger. That guy gets hit. It's a thing of beauty watching him scramble. It's majestic. But when it happens, he makes things happen. And I think he's going to be fine. Obviously, 2019 was a weird year. The end of 2018 with Brown and Bell kind of leaving, and they've ushered in like a bunch of new kids. It was going to be interesting to see how that panned out to start last year, and obviously he bounced halfway through week 1. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to have a decent game this week. I wouldn't worry about him.
So Gladys obviously cheering for the Steelers as her fan, which would have been great to get the two of you on the show to debate that. But just to focus on some of the Steelers fantasy players, the high-end ones, Juju Smith-Schuster and James Conner. Are they rebounding this year? Is that going to help their ADP? I think Juju certainly aided by the fact that Ben Roethlisberger is returning. But what do you think about their fantasy potential this year?
Yeah, they were both the darlings of the 2019 draft season, weren't they? They had big expectations on him. Juju coming off an amazing 2018, and James Conner obviously filling in for Bell and took that role quite well. There's so much to say about Juju. Obviously, it's a contract year. If that's the narrative you want to go down, and I think they're going to be fine. I really do. I don't worry too much. In terms of James Conner, like a health thing, I don't know how much all of that was relative anyway. I think they all kind of seem a bit more inconspicuous. Obviously concussions bother people as well. I get that, especially for running backs and all that. But, if you're worried about James Conner because of Benny Snell or Jalen Samuels or Anthony McFarland, then I don't think either of those guys would really bother you. If you were a 0 RB person and you ended up getting James Conner, you'd be pretty happy. I think they're both going to be fine. They'll both be in the top 15 of whatever category you want them to be in, like in terms of full point. I think I'll be fine. I kind of like James Conner. I think he's extremely underrated when he's out there. He looks absolutely jacked this offseason, so I think he's going to have a good season. Giants' run defense was middle of the park last year. They were okay. They got a lot better when Leonard Williams joined in and a few guys kind of stepped up towards the end of the season. They weren't too bad, but I don't think he'll have any problems with that. Juju should find space in the middle of the field today as well.
As Gladys is pointing out, the worry with Conner is the injury, because every time he's on the field, he's explosive. He fits all the roles that any running back could. Great pass catcher, good, inside the tackles runner, athletic enough to get to the side. Even I don't know that this too often, so he fits in the way they want to run well. And I think there's probably no workhorse on the team. That's probably when it becomes a big. James Conner's healthy. I expect him to get. I'm saying 75% of the time. It's probably closer to 90%. What Tomlin's done, his history has been, if there's one guy he thinks he can trust, he'll trust him. And he's shown he'll trust Conner. Snell, Sammy, certainly the rookie McFarland haven't shown.
Yeah, Snell might get goal line work. He might get short use work. look, the Steelers were the one thing that didn't help was obviously the Ravens in the same division overshadowing them, right? But the Steelers still went 8-8. The Steelers went 8-8 last year with all of that going on, with the quarterback issues, the running back issues, the receiver issues. You know, they still went 8-8 with that team. That is not a bad thing to be. If you're a Steelers fan, you should be very happy with how their season is going to shape up. Chase Claypool, I think Eric Ebron's going to be a very underrated addition this year. You know, if he has a 2018 Colts performance, that's an incredible pickup for them. And he's only going to help, especially in those red zone opportunities. He's only going to help guys like Juju. He's only going to help James Conner. He's going to be that guy that open a lot up. Absolutely. And that's a big deal. And for a team like that to be 8-8, I think they're a very good chance of having I think they're a playoff team. I think they're going to the playoffs. We're going to find out in the next few hours, but I very much like the Steelers this year to rebound. And again, that rebound is for a team that went 8-8. It's crazy.
Right. Which is, again, Tomlin, never been lower than 8-8. And, if last year, if there were 7 playoff teams, they would have been that 7th playoff team.
Oh, yeah.
I think part of it is their defense, though. Minkah Fitzpatrick coming over, now he gets a full offseason with the team. Are we in the start of that bright young star and that defense really, truly an elite unit?
I just got goosebumps thinking about the Steelers defense. That's what I think of them. I think they're amazing. They are so amazing to watch. They wreck. They wreck. They are incredible to watch. Like, a lot of people watch fantasy to watch these guys play. You can watch the Steelers to watch that defense. They are ridiculous. A few teams like the Ravens will do that to you. The Jags from a few years back with that 2017 run, you could watch them and just go, damn, they're amazing to watch as a unit. The Steelers have that feel about them when they're healthy. They are hard to stop on that side of the ball, and they're hard to beat. So that'll be interesting to see how this game works out.
And so to the Giants side of the football and offense, certainly, how Giants best approach this defense then, in your eyes?
Panic, Kyle. They're going to panic. Look, I think their best option at this point is Saquon in space. It'd be nice. Like, it's hard to say because a guy like Darius Slayton, when the Giants, I know different teams, different defenses, he had no problems against Darius Slay last year. And he had no problems against the Jets last year. He's done okay against some decent defenses. So if Saquon can get into space, he might be thinking, I can't wait to see Evan Ingram. I think he's a guy to watch today. I think Evan Ingram could be in line for a big game.
Golden Tate is out. I think that's we've kind of buried the lead there, right? Golden Tate is officially ruled out.
Is he? I haven't seen that yet.
I thought I saw that. Maybe that was premature on whoever put that out, but I thought I saw that he was inactive. I'll quickly look that up. But again, open things up for more targets for Shepard, Ingram, and Slayton.
You'd think that would move Shepard more inside. It would move Ingram more outside, and maybe Caden Smith gets more run. The receiver depth at the Giants is absolutely appalling. They picked up Damon Ratley after cuts. Corey Coleman was their 4th receiver, and that will tell you everything you need to know about what they did, which wasn't much. So
Rappaport tweeted out Golden Tate is officially out. So don't start Golden Tate, folks, if he's in your lineups.
Wow. Okay.
The unfortunate thing, though, Sterling Shepard moving to the slot is good because that seems like his best success comes in the slot. But just the lining up against Minkah Fitzpatrick, though?
Maybe. Yeah, you could see that happening, but they might rotate a lot of Caden Smith in there too. Like, I wouldn't be like Caden Smith. We've spoken about this before on the Full Press podcast. Caden Smith's a guy that could come in and get some work, even if that's just to work in line a little bit more. So Shepard was okay last year. He was extremely underrated on a points per game basis for the Giants. He was 15th, wide receiver 15, 20, wide receiver 20 on a points per game basis last year in fantasy. So he was getting targets, especially down the stretch. He was averaging like eight targets a game from Daniel Jones. So, I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters too much where Shepard lines up. Jones is going to look for him. So I don't think that would be the worry. But, again, I don't know so much. They have to get open quick. That's the answer here.
Yeah. As Gladys pointed out, Giants ranked 26th offensively last year.
Yeah, but I mean, the
So,
offensive line this year looks completely different. So
That's
what would have been Halapau in the center is now Nick Gates. Left tackle was Nate Solder. It's now Andrew Thomas, the rookie we picked 4th overall. And it looks like Ken Fleming, who we've grabbed from Dallas, will start at the right instead of Matt Pert. So, and Zietler was an incredible trade for the Giants last year with the Browns. Right guard Will Hernandez is going to take another step forward. But it's a younger lineup, and your first game of the year with minimal reps is against the Steelers. And, you know, TJ Watt, Derek, Bud Dupree, Cam Hayward, like that. That's going to be an interesting matchup to see them take that team on first up.
Going against, okay, so what's better or worse? Going against number 2 front 7. Actually, sorry, Glass, I don't understand what you're asking. Is it better or worse that the Steelers are the number 2 front 7 last year? I think they were ranked.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not even surprised. I wouldn't even need to look at the stat up to know that happened. They were immense last year. Their defense held up their end of the bargain. The offense kind of trailed a bit with all the injuries that happened, but the Giants
with that quarterback play.
That's it.
And you know what? Same thing with the Bears. With the poor quarterback we got from Mitch Trubisky. I mean, and then Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges is probably the worst quarterback play we saw last year. And both teams went 8-8.
Unbelievable. So I mean, that's what I think. I think that Giants O-line, that's going to be interesting. You know, through their preseason camps and the footage they showed. You know, they show something amazing like O'Shane Ximenez. O'Shane Ximenez is one of our outside linebackers, absolutely mauling Andrew Thomas. And you're like, mad, we've got a really good linebacker. And then the flip side to it is, oh, that's our number 4 overall pick. And you're like, oh, no. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see how they hold up. There's going to be a very big learning curve. If you're playing the Steelers defense this week, I think you might be in for a treat.
Yeah. It was definitely that goes. So second Monday night, we'll move off the Giants Steelers talk as much as my 2 co-hosts.
Oh, sorry, just one more thing.
But they're here on camera.
I'm going to take the Giants with the 6.5, and I'm going to take the unders as well.
Steelers notoriously played out to their competition. I think I would buy in on that too. Yeah. Steelers winning by only 3 or 4. As much as the talent level says they shouldn't, that team always plays down to their opponent, especially first game jitters. Yeah. First game back for Ben. I don't know that it's going to go as smooth.
Take that 6.5. That might creep out. I haven't looked yet, but the last I checked, it was out at 6.5. That's I think like a week ago. That was 1.5. It's come up. So,
and if you're the Steelers, why not? If Ben's first game back, you think you can just run on this team, right? And then the points, just run on that team and maintain it up, but lower number of plays run, so maybe lower point total score. So I could see it. Yeah, I think I would go with the Giants as well on that to beat the spread. And again, I'm not picking them to. I could see again. I see Steelers win by 4. I think is probably makes more sense to me than half or 6 as Gladys is saying it is now. So again, moving on to that second Monday night game. So apparently, brought back Adoree Jackson, who I believe they paid to be their number 1 corner, losing Chris Harris and Aqib Talib and other pieces in the last couple of years.
Von Miller, yeah.
Jackson was probably Jay Brown tonight, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, that would have been an interesting matchup to see play out. AJ Brown is that guy. AJ Brown is that guy, and I think that would have been very interesting to see how that worked out. But that's a
lot of injuries on defense. The Broncos, we obviously know about Von Miller. Mark Barron, who they also aged this year, he's out for this week. So I like it for Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry, yeah. I think the overs on Derrick Henry tonight was 96 yards. So whatever, I'll take it.
Take the over. Yeah, take the over. He could challenge Josh Jacobs, number 1 fantasy player this week, I think, perspective, who obviously did that. We didn't mention Josh Jacobs. He was the number 1 overall running back so far against the Panthers. This is all you get, though.
I had Jacobs as the RB2 for the week, and I'm pretty happy with that.
Nice call. Nice call. Yeah. I think I had him at 7, so I should have been higher on him, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I got lucky on that one. Carolina, the worst, the worst rushing defense in the league. That happened.
They were last year, yeah. So not bank on that? That is a good. So one player I've really been my most rostered player, Jonnu Smith. I think he sets up perfectly in this matchup. Again, Mark Barron was probably going to cover him. So suddenly AJ Brown, the person who isn't there, the player that was going to cover Jonnu Smith isn't there. I think those 2 feet, I could see most of Tannehill going to both of them. Corey Davis is questionable. Not sure. I haven't heard yet final word if he's in or out, but if he's lit, I could see, again, run heavy approach. I think you want to start Henry AJ Brown, and I've got Jonnu Smith starting in most of my lineups. I think, again, I have him on 7 teams. I think he's starting. I'm full in on the Jonnu Smith train. I think he could have a monster night tonight. From the Broncos' perspective, a little low on Gordon. I did bench him in the one league I had him. Just because the tough defenses, and we're not sure about the Gordon-Lindsey split as much as I think that signals they're going to give him the football and that they want to give him the football. We don't know what it's going to look like week 1. So if they're split, this is not the efficient matchup against the Titans to go with that.
Yeah, there was a guy last year that got drafted by the Titans. He missed the first, I think, 10 games of the year. Jeffrey Simmons, I think it was Jeffrey Simmons. Not Justin. Jeffrey Simmons. He's a guy for all those IDP zealots out there. I have been holding on to him. I think he's in for a big year, Jeffrey Simmons for the Titans. I think having Jadeveon.
Is he a linebacker? Sorry?
Defensive end, defensive tackle. He's in that area. So
okay.
Yeah, defensive tackle, I think. So having obviously like Jadeveon Clowney next to him is only going to make his life so much easier. And like when he finally got to his health, his fitness and obviously his health improved when he came back. I think he started on the IR. He didn't look like he skipped a beat. And obviously that was a bigger shock to see because a guy like Quinnen Williams for the Jets did nothing most of the year. And I know he had his injury issues, but Jeffrey Simmons looked like he was an absolute monster to close the year out for the Titans. Clowney next to him, I think, is a big deal too. The worry that I have for a guy like Jonnu Smith, and obviously you got to expect things to change with obviously Tannehill getting the start from the start. It was like 18 targets a game Tannehill had, and AJ Brown soaked up 33% of that. So that is something that I would be slightly concerned about. Can Derrick Henry get more involved in the passing game? Maybe. He might only need 1 or 2 a game. That could be something that takes him to the next level. Jonnu Smith is like a guy in that Dallas got it. If it's going to happen, it's got to be now. I don't think you can wait for a guy like Jonnu Smith another year. It has to be this year. Same thing for Ian Thomas. These are guys that are like in their 3rd year that...
Well, I think Smith might be 4th. I think he might be on the last year of his rookie contract. For him, NFL-wise, he really is to put it together.
I feel like it might be his 3rd, maybe his 4th, whatever it may be. It's got to be now. And if you've got a guy like Tannehill, listen, if you want to go along the same ilk of what they did last year, if he's their number 2 receiver, you may be looking at 5 or 6 targets a game, and that might be enough for a tight end anyway. And he's probably that biggest guy anyway that isn't Derrick Henry. So I like him to take that step forward, but there's also obviously their offensive coordinators, Art Smith. When Mariota was when he was drafted, Art Smith was the tight end coach. Art Smith's worked his way up to offensive coordinator. So there's also a chance that you're going to see Anthony Fersker or Michael Pruitt come in. But that's within the Titans, game plan. Like,
well, they do run the 2 tight end set often enough.
There's a chance that Fersker or Pruitt can come in and be that guy, and that is brutal because every time you thought Jonnu Smith was in a good position or had a good matchup, was one of those other guys on the depth chart that came out and did something as well. But I like Jonnu Smith too. But AJ Brown, I think he's that guy this year. I think he's going to be amazing. So,
oh yeah,
Adoree Jackson.
I've seen some projections that have him up at 120 yards. I think that's realistic for AJ Brown. He's a very talented player and he's alpha here. But I think Jonnu Smith, I don't know, in my eyes, he's clearly the 2nd most talented player on this team on that core anyway.
Yeah. I think. Look, you'd hope that that's the case. There's also always a chance that Corey Davis gets his 3 to 5 targets a game as well. Like it's a weird team to project because you don't want to project them too high because you don't know if they will, but there's a good chance that they won't, and they might just stick to the tried and true. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. Just give it to Derrick Henry. He's going to do the work. And in a game like this where Von Miller is not there and Mark Barron is out, and obviously Cortland Sutton being out hurts the Broncos too. They might turn it over a little bit more.
Yep.
You know, there could be those 3 and outs, you know, where you relied on Cortland Sutton. Is he out or in? I don't know.
They don't know yet. So Rappaport tweeted out a few hours long shot to play. It seems like someone within is saying that he's probably not going to play.
If he's out there, he's a wasted body. I don't know if anyone's really going to trust him this week. And if that's the case, it's what Tim Patrick. They should like Jerry.
Yeah,
Jeudy,
I would say Tim Patrick.
Noah Fant. We see like Tennessee weren't great to tight ends. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They had
just pointed out, in the comment.
That could be a Noah Fant game, and that's fine too. But I'm not sure how much I trust anything that the Titans do. What are we talking? If Tannehill was working 18 targets a game, 18 attempts a game on average, are we talking 25? Like, if that's the case, then it's going to be hard to really see any of them do more. Like, it's going to be
unless
tough.
Everything is so focused on just Brown. If it's just the two of them and they get most of the targets and everyone else is only seeing 1 or 2, you're probably fine. Safe, but yeah, I think John Smith's going to rely on being the clear number 2 guy and being that very clear second option and getting things behind for him because he is so great athletically. They can, unlike most tight ends, you can throw him a screen behind the line of scrimmage and he can get positive yardage out of it. So that is sort of the one aspect of Jonas helps him more than a lot of tight ends.
Oh, for sure. He's when used correctly, he's a difference. He can be a difference maker, but I don't know if they've had to rely on that because the way their season broke, and it was just give it to Derrick Henry and we'll figure or AJ Brown and the rest will figure it out as we go. It's a decent game plan. It works. Like if we're going to just give it to Derrick Henry and then go AJ Brown, just here you go, 8 to 9 a game, off you go. It's not a bad way to play, but it really kind of it will hurt the rest of your team. And as we said, like he had Delaney Walker in front of him for all that time, and even when Walker was out, he didn't really do a whole lot. So obviously, we hope he can take that step forward and be a fantasy asset moving forward. But Titans passing offense is going to be hard to straight out each week, I think.
Gladys mentioning, if Sutton's out, Malcolm Butler probably gets stuck on Jerry Jeudy. So welcome to the NFL, Jerry Jeudy. You're going to the guy as identified as the primary target, at least for how defenses will approach the Broncos pass. So maybe this is maybe the Broncos decide with Sutton, they go more run heavy and say, okay, maybe they unleash Drew Lock yet, and they're going to try and keep it close, slow the game down.
Could be a Philip Lindsay week. It could be very much a Philip Lindsay week, and that's fine. Like, obviously, I think everyone was excited to see Cortland Sutton take that next step, and obviously him being there helps Jerry Jeudy a whole lot. But I'm not sure how much we should have been worried about Jeudy anyhow. I know Malcolm Butler on him. Obviously, he has a bit of prestige about him. I think Judy's going to be fine. You're right. They might just end up running it through Gordon and Lindsay and see if Fan or Jeudy could get open every now and again. Lock's an interesting one to keep an eye on. We'll see if he can get more improvements as the year goes on. And he had a decent end to the year from when he came in too. But they were almost kind of similar in how they were set up, except Derrick Henry's just an animal. We'll see.
I don't know if Gladys liked your comment there necessarily.
Thanks, Gladys.
Full support. Here, but so I think that were there any other topics about either of the two games tonight that we didn't quite hear?
I'll tell you what. So the over/under set at 41 for the Broncos-Titans game.
Yeah.
So and they're giving the Broncos at home the 3.5 start. So
they weren't. I thought there was the Titans on the road with the 3.5.
Broncos plus 3.5.
Oh yes, I guess the Broncos at the home as underdogs. Yeah. Sorry, listen, dude.
Yeah, you do different things up there in the north. I get it. So 41. They're not giving this a high-scoring outlook. So
yeah,
second
lowest of the week. I think the Jets built one that was lower.
Well. That's not too much as a surprise because who trusts anything the Jets are doing right now? But
I think a lot of it had to do with just the Jets low, their own individual so low. I think it was 16 points or something, which I think they went under, to be honest. So
Adam Gase today, I regret sending Le'Veon Bell out there with a hamstring injury. Oh, well. I'm glad. I'm sorry. Glad you feel remorse for that.
And the Jets are thinking, man, we regret this guy as our head coach.
No, they don't regret a thing, mate. They're a terrible organization. Yeah, over under.
Well-run organization.
Yeah, they're not great. The Jets, they're not good, are they? That's all right. It's good to have next to you when you're a Giants supporter. It's always like, oh, you can please the Jets.
Apparently, we're slightly better than the Jets. It's because Gladys says we're doing great in her absence. So thank you, Gladys.
Who wants to join Gangrene? Who wants to join that? Hey, we're going to support the Gangrene. No, I'm good. I'm good.
I think Quentin Williams and how happy and smiley he is. I wonder if he's going to have that same energy and attitude tracks done there.
Get rid of Adams, mate. That was an absolute. What they got for it was fine. Like, I get it. They got the picks and obviously McDougal in return. I understand, like, if you feel like you're setting your team up for something next year. Obviously,
I think they also have the GM who's Joe Douglas making smart decisions. I think he'll get the most of those first. Whereas, like let's say you had Gase full control drafted, those first may as well be on this. They'll waste them with a third round pick anyway.
It's interesting how they've set themselves up moving forward, the Jets. But obviously Hernan's meant to be that guy that takes a step forward. Everyone's interested in Denzel Mims. Perryman came in with hype. Crowder's going to soak up 120, 130 targets a year. So everyone wants Bell to be that guy. I don't think he can be at the Jets. I hope he does, because when Le'Veon Bell is at his peak, he is awesome to watch. But at the same time,
absolutely,
it just seems like Gase is just going to ruin everything. They traded for Kalen Ballage. That's why. Just don't. Just don't.
I mean, and
Lamar Miller's been on 7 teams already this offseason. Just throw a few chips out at him. That's all you got to do.
To be fair to my listen to the Full Press Fantasy Pod, Alessandro, who's a Jets fan, point out, they gave up a conditional 7th, and he needed to make the team. Like, if he didn't make their team, they wouldn't have given up anything. So it was kind of just like a low risk, whatever. And he ended up, the trade didn't even go through because he failed the physical. So it was kind of low risk on the Jets. I think Ballage is still. Dolphins cut him. I think they cut him. So I think he's out there.
Yeah, no, He's out there. That's fine.
And I guess if Bell's hurt, maybe we'll see Kalen Ballage get signed by the Jets all of a sudden.
I could think of absolutely nothing worse. But, LaMichael Pirine might be out there too. So, but I think Josh... I think Josh Adams got the goal line work for the Jets. And he's a former Philly running back. I'm pretty sure it was Josh Adams.
He got the only red zone carry.
Yes, that's...
it was inside the 5, so it was a goal line carry technically as well.
Something to look at.
They weren't in the red zone very much. They ran the 3 plays in the red zone all game, so that wasn't great.
It's 3 more than what you'd think.
I mean, I guess the Dolphins only ran 4 plays in red zone, 5, I guess.
That was
wrong. But the Eagles only ran 2 red zone plays. So certain offenses, like the Browns, only ran 2 red zone plays. Some of them just weren't in. And then you get the Chiefs, who Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 10 red zone carries just to himself, let alone all the 3 red zone targets to Watkins. Was it 7 red zone targets they threw? So they ran 17 plays in the red zone. So and you get the Bengals with 2 plays in the red zone. So I'm again, look for my red zone report on Full Press Coverage. I'm going to shamelessly plug that. I think Jeff wants us to plug the Going To crew. So first off, thanks Dan for joining me. Thanks Gladys for in the comments. Again, hopefully we can figure this out for next week where the trio could be together. Thank you all our listeners. Man, this is ending the week technically, even though it's starting it on Monday, but ending our football week, so to speak. Look for
on tomorrow.
Right off the bat. I believe tomorrow Gerson does his waiver wire show. So going for 2. We're every day football, fantasy football content. Hoping you join us here every day, whether it's on YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, anywhere else you're watching. Again, appreciate all the listeners, appreciate all the viewers. Shout out to Jeff Lambert for giving us all this off. Thank you, Dan.
Next week's at 7:00. We're on earlier this week because of the doubleheader. So next week is 7:00 on the Monday. Gladys will be here. We're going to have some words, Gladys. I've got a feeling, so it's okay. Or depending on tonight's result, you might not ever hear from me again. 2 options we have.
Yeah, we might get fired. Who knows? Apparently, a nice job, but he's also a giant fan, which is also very this comment too.
The delusion's real. That's great.
Sorry, Dan. Daniel, but Dan, we're not taking Jay Jaw. He played 40% of the snaps, so
If a
you
tree
know,
falls in the woods-
Jalen Rieger didn't outsnap him by very much.
if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, did it really fall? Was he even out there? I don't know. That's what he resembles right now, a fallen tree in a forest that no one can give a fuck about. What a waste. Greg Ward from the AAF is much better. Why bother? They're better off getting Hakeem Butler right now. Jay Jaws.
Well, Nelson Agholor for them, so. Oh no, that was the Raiders. Sorry, wrong team. I don't know on the Eagles. Oops.
It's too hard. It's easy to give the Eagles gripe. Their quarterback's a bootleg Derek Carr at this point. So at this point, you know, what does it even matter? There's no point talking about it. This season's cool.
I think Wentz is a bit better outside of structure than Derek Carr.
He's barely better. He's
not much.
A little bit. He's a bootleg Derek Carr. I'll give him that.
Okay. All right. Well, there goes the Carson Wentz certainly gave that the boot. Yeah. Again, thank you all for the Giants fan needed to get some shots in at the Eagles quarterback right before he went off, didn't he?
They just lost to a football team. I have to get my shots in now.
Football team, I will say that's not overstat. I don't think, So obviously that was a surprise victory for Washington. Maybe there'll be some surprising victories tonight. My survival pool pick of wins is hoping that there isn't, so that's not so surprising. But yes, come back next week if you enjoyed this, and if you're not, well, if you didn't enjoy it, then come back next week anyway, because Gladys should be here, so it'll probably be way better. So thank you, Daniel. Thank you, all the listeners. My name is Kyle Senra, signing out on this episode of the Monday Night Going for Two War Room.